have is, does the president think that when you launch a missile strike or you drop a bomb and it's a successful operation, that in and of itself is going to change facts on the ground?
I think not, but I think one thing in foreign policy we've seen that he is flexible above all. And I think he railed against what China has done to America's heartland. He said it was the raping of the U.S. Now he has changed his tenor and tone completely. So I think he's very flexible on this, but we have heard him, as Neil was saying before, he barely speaks about foreign policy at all. He doesn't give that many public speeches at all, actually. He's not had big rallies like he promised to do or said he would do. He's not given sort of a big speech since that once to the House and Senate. But I think there are a lot of people wondering what the Trump doctrine in foreign policy is. He is willing to use the military and the use of a force, but beyond that, he's not filled in the gaps of this. But I think one thing is also clear, the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, is definitely in the driver's seat now, and a lot of his commanders, the Defense Secretary, James Mattis of the Pentagon, also sort of driving things. So I think we're seeing it shape, but we seldom hear him talk about it.
But the team is winning a lot of praise. To your question, a lot of people say we need to hear more from the president. And again, if he's thinking things through and he's planning it down the road a little bit, that's one thing. But it is true, we don't hear a lot. But the team itself is getting a lot of praise. Even Democrats may not like some of the things they do, but they look at this team and they say, wow, that's an A-plus team.
That's right. And some people concerned that it's too heavy with generals, right? A lot of these positions, typically civilians take them. And so we've seen, I think, from this president that he likes symbolism in terms of these muscular approaches to foreign policy. The mother of all bombs dropped in Afghanistan, this 59 missile strike in Syria. And he certainly must sit back and look at sort of the television reviews of this and sort of the televised nature of this and think it's a success. And but I think the question beyond all of this is what happens next. And then obviously John McCain laying that out very nicely. He's going to have, hawks who have praised him really say what's next. What does the Trump doctrine look like other than these kind of one-off strikes in these different regions?
One irony here, though, is the America First president. The guy who talked so much during the campaign about fixing things at home domestically is now, over the past week and a half, involved so much abroad, in all of these conflicts. And it's one area, I think, too, that he has a lot of latitude in foreign policy. And you often see presidents toward the end, as a lame duck, head abroad to try and do things. President Trump has had a lot of trouble domestically with Congress, and in this 2-week congressional period, he's kind of strengthened his hand, and polling was probably ticking up for him in approval ratings, which may change the dynamics domestically, when Congress returns next week.
Strength and toughness is without a doubt a Trump brand that emerged from the campaign, right. But it is somewhat, to Jeff's point and Matt's point, is the specific actions are somewhat at odds from a candidate and then a private citizen who repeatedly told President Obama, don't take the bait, don't go into Syria, even after chemical weapons attacks. So the strength and the toughness part, I think, is consistent with the Trump brand, but the America First part is a little odd.
Yeah, I think there isn't a Trump doctrine, but it's promising who it looks like the folks are in charge of forming it. And there will be people who are angry about the political rhetoric from the candidate being abandoned when he's sort of faced with reality of the world stage. But we are a country that was chastened by the Bush doctrine, was frustrated, voters were frustrated by the Obama doctrine, and wanted something different. And Americans also love decisive action, but maybe not too much. And so these moments for him, I don't think it's a terrible political bet that even without the cohesive message around them, Americans will say, yeah, I like that. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's a bad bet at all, because they don't want to be in these deep conflicts on the ground.
And the issues we see before us, whether it's the civil war in Syria and the atrocities of the Assad regime, the broader Islamic terrorism fight, Afghanistan, elsewhere in the Middle East, or North Korea, those three themselves, three of the most vexing, complicated issues facing any president. What is any president? Any president. What's been interesting is that, to your point about Democrats heard America First, a lot of Democrats liked the America First part. Let's not have military involvement in the Middle East. Let's pull back and create jobs at home. Listen now to Bernie Sanders criticizing Donald Trump, who he thinks is going the wrong path.
I do not want to see the United States get sucked into perpetual warfare in the Middle East, see our men and women get killed, trillions of dollars being spent.
That is not something on day one of the Trump administration. You did not think the Democrats were going to see that opening. It's politics. It's politics. You didn't. Bernie Sanders said some of that during the Obama administration as well, through the drone strikes and the like. But it's striking that that's where we are 3 months in.